Hey everyone, it's Dr. Sam, and I'd like to welcome you to another EyeClarity Podcast. Well, you are in for a treat today. This is part of our pre-summit podcast interview that I've invited the featured speakers on, and today we have a powerhouse. Her name is Crystal Hadnot. And a little bit about her: she's a certified integrative nutritionist, functional wellness coach, health educator, speaker, author, and advocate, leading thousands of clients, students, and followers from around the world in a holistic revolution to fuel their potential in moving to new levels of wellness. And I love this part: nourish, nurture, and sustain. We all need that today with what we've been through uh, this year with the pandemic on top of everything else. So I'd like to invite you, Crystal. Thanks for joining us. And I think that people would love to know your story, how you got involved in health and healing and nutrition. It's fascinating when I read it. So tell us a little bit about where you've come from.
Uh, well, I got into nutrition based on my own health ailments that I was experiencing in my early 20s. At the time, I was a grad student and in college, and I had questions that were not getting answers by doctors. And all I knew to do at the time as a graduate student was to do research. And so experiencing those issues where the doctors was like, let's just hope you don't die. And that, I guess that was the key for me, is that they basically sent me home to, you know, let's just hope it fixes itself and you don't die. And I was like, that's definitely not an option.
Mhm,
And so my business actually started because I wanted to be everything that I needed in the moment when I didn't have it.
mhm,
And so that started my business energy. And so my goal with my clients is to be able to be that. I look at medicine and nutrition the way I do nutrition as kind of just like Batman and Robin. So, where medicine cannot fix issues, my goal is to come in and close that gap for individuals and just really help them to educate and understand the science behind it all, because I think that's where most people struggle. Because most of the time when you're dealing with a health ailment, you feel like you don't have control and you don't know what to do. So, but once you have that knowledge and you're armed with that knowledge and understanding, you then feel like you have control. And that's kind of the start to where you start regaining your health back again.
mhm, mhm. So, what would you say the biggest misconception is with the people that you counsel? What paradigms are you trying to dissolve and create new ones based on people's belief systems around nutrition and health?
Well, that's one, nutrition is not one size fit all
Mhm,
because there's so many like dietary theories out there. This is the best one to save your life. Everyone's diet is the way to go. But I always like to tell people the best, misconception we have is that, one, that there's a good diet, there are good and bad diets, and or there's one way works for everyone, and that's just not true. You have to look at nutrition from an individual perspective, but also look at nutrition from a holistic perspective. And
mhm,
holistic meaning nutrition goes beyond what you're putting on your plate. It's all the things that you consume in life, and
mhm,
understanding how all those dynamic take place to fuel you to your levels of health or actually become detrimental to your health. And
mhm,
so that's kind of the
mhm.
misconceptions that I like to deal with people, because we all think that if we just drink water, eat vegetables, we should be okay. And that's part of it, but that's not the full truth.
Mhm, mhm. So we have some athletes that are definitely listening to the show, and I know you are a well accomplished athlete and you run marathons, you've done some really amazing things. how do you blend nutrition with people who are, working out or maybe high energy athletes?
Mhm.
What are some of your tips that you could offer them?
Well, with athletes, I tell them athletes are, I kind of like design my clients based on the type of car, like different types
Mhm.
of cars. So your athlete would be the sports cars, the V8s, the horsepower. I have a Hellcat engine. So, those sports car athletes, they're the high powered. And in those vehicles, you can't put regular octane in them. You have to put premium and supreme inside those cars. So
Mhm.
it's the same thing with food. Like you cannot put regular food to fuel your body to perform at that level of performance. So you have to, go almost an extra mile to really fuel it to those high level octanes
Mhm.
of nutrition to be able to perform at the level that you need to perform at. And
Mhm.
so that's where I start baseline with my athletes. Like
Mhm.
for you, it's even more important because your body is even more sensitive to building inflammation in the body just because of the stress that you put onto in, the daily stress that you put on your body. So it's more susceptible because of, not to get too much into the Ayurvedic, but the dosha, but the heat that you put into the body, creating that inflammation,
Mhm.
and that inflammation can present itself in so many ways. And so to control that aspect, you have to have nutrition to help balance the body
Mhm.
out from that perspective.
Mhm.
So it becomes super crucial for athletes.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. We are here with Crystal Hadnot, who's a certified integrative nutritionist, functional wellness coach, speaker, author, and she's one of our featured speakers for the Vision and Whole Health Summit that's coming up January 15th to the 17th. So I don't want you to give it away, but when we talk, um, one of the things that you have actually studied a lot is the relationship between the eyes and the gut. And
Yeah.
so, can you speak just a little? Give us a kind of an hors d'oeuvre, so to speak, uh, on, what you have learned. What are the connections?
Yeah. Well, I tell people it's a triangle effect. A lot of people are starting to really pay attention to brain gut axis,
Mhm.
but there's actually a triangle effect that most people don't pay attention to, and that the eye is a very big factor in that neurotransmitter. Not I tell you, I try to get out of scientific terms when I'm talking to people, but those neurotransmitters that goes to the gut to the brain. There's a passageway at your eyes, and a lot of people don't understand that passageway, and that and I always look at it as like your eyes is really, a lot of people say the eyes are the window of the soul. But one thing that I started studying, because I looked at Deepak, he was like, the eyes are actually your inner pharmacy.
Mhm.
And so the eyes can tell a lot about what's going on with the gut, and all of those things happen within the brain. So if you Chinese medicine have been doing this for years. The foot and the eye can tell you about different ailments that are taking place in other parts of the body. So really just understanding that when you have certain gut issues, it can be indirectly related to the brain, but just directly, a lot of times our gut and the issues that are happening in our gut, specifically inflammation, is definitely presented in the eyes.
Mhm.
And we may, on a acute level, it may, oh, my eyes are dry today, or oh, my eyes are irritated today. But then for people like myself, I have Graves' disease. On a chronic level, it can cause muscles disruption of the eye. And then now I'm having vision issues,
Mhm.
and so just really understanding that the things that's going on with the gut manifest itself inside the eyes. And then the eyes can really be a descriptor for what's happening all over the rest of your body if we pay attention to it.
Yeah, and also that we acknowledge that connection. I mean, in my field, it's very difficult for eye doctors to get that connection because they're so focused on looking for the disease. And then once they find the disease, they're not tracing it back to the causative factors like what you eat, what's your inflammation like, your stress. And if you look at the main eye conditions like cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration, or just, deteriorating eyesight, there's seems to be a really strong connection to the gut and the endocrine system, like you say, with Graves. The thyroid and the eyes are very connected. So I'm really excited to hear more.
Yeah.
And by the way, my community loves the science piece. And I know you've done a lot of research and exploration of science for many years. So we want to hear your expertise because it gives us a validation what my gut is feeling. And so, I just want to tell us a little bit about your science exploration, just generally with nutrition and what your background is.
Yeah. Yeah. So most, a lot of people understand nutritionists that take the clinical route of study. I didn't take the clinical route of study. Actually, in my field, I'm known as a nutrition scientist. So instead of taking, the clinical route where I studied in hospitals, did clinical rounds or a dietary perspective, I literally researched the science of food up to the PhD level. And my focus was more so understanding, not, I tell people all the time that everyone knows, like, okay, drink water, eat vegetables, but do we understand the chemical reaction to certain foods and what that means once it's in the body and how the body responds to those reactions? And so that's kind of where my study and background comes into play, specifically as it relates to disease, and really looking at healing modalities to address when looking at the creation of disease or the root causes of disease. And so that's where my field of study come in. So I pretty much look at various diseases in my study or have looked at, and really study linkages or a cause and effects action to figure out like what is the actual root cause instead of dealing with the symptom that present itself. And that was done through just really looking at like what creates disease and how the disease gets started, starting with, from the accumulation of something you got too much of or not enough of. And then how it goes to get aggravated and spread and localize and progress and kind of diversify itself to different various of diseases. And so, and that's the part that I think where the integrative studies with my background come in, is because a lot of people focus like maybe on one disease, but generally what happens with disease once it's manifest in the body, it diversifies and it becomes other things. And so where now you may just had something that started as a burp turns into heartburn turned into arthritis, but now you have rheumatoid arthritis. And for rheumatoid arthritis going undealt with, now you have symptoms of MS, and symptoms of MS manifest itself, and now you have an autoimmune eye thyroid disease. So just understanding how the body in its way of trying to figure out the fight or flight in that disease, how it diversifies and manifests, when all the root cause was simply this person was probably eating way too many spicy foods that started with a burp and led to heartburn, and they just took medication to deal with the symptom of heartburn instead of taking spicy foods out of their diet.
Sure. Yeah, it's amazing how, as a detective, one thing leads to another. And what I hear you saying is that you're looking at the causes and not just treating symptoms. And that's
Exactly.
refreshing. And in medicine today, because a lot of times here's the drug, and it doesn't really get any better. So we are here.
Yeah. I always tell
Good.
people it's like taking a shower.
Yes.
I mean, putting on deodorant without taking a shower. So that's always my common thing I tell people. So when you take medicine, you're putting on that deodorant, but have you taken the shower first to
Yeah.
wash off whatever the dirt is, or the disease or virus or bacteria,
Yeah.
before you
Exactly.
put that deodorant on?
So we're here with Crystal Hadnot, who's one of the featured speakers for the upcoming Whole Health and Vision Summit. And I see here that you have a new book coming out in the spring of 2020,
Yes.
Nourished Food Beyond the Plate. Tell us a little
Yes.
about that. Tell us about that.
So now that people don't think I'm some weird scientist, I think it's important for people to really understand my methodology.
Mhm.
So after years of just doing, I guess on the industry perspective, these journal articles, and now what I think is important, where instead of just sharing amongst colleagues or people in the field through journal articles, is to come up with sharing my methodology to the world and presenting it to the public.
Mhm.
And so that's what Well Nourished is really, helping people understand my methodology and how I choose to view diseases, and what does that mean when it comes to food, and what I really look at as food. Because food for me is, like I always say, is beyond what you're eating on the plate. It's all of those things that you consume in life.
Mhm.
And that's your job, your finances, consuming social media, TV. So all the things that you consuming, makes up food that you're feeding yourself or nourishing yourself, or the lack thereof. So
Mhm.
just really looking at that, and what that, and how that manifests into different types of diseases.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that. And how can people get in touch with you? How can they consume your content and work with you?
To consume my content, they can always find me on Instagram at Crystal Hadnot. I'm also online. You can find me crystalhatnot.com to just know more about me personally. And from there, it takes you to all the different aspects of who I am, as far as my nutrition consulting business, as well as my philanthropy efforts, etc.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to having you at our summit, and I'm sure we'll be together again. So take care.
Yes, I am looking forward to it. And it's so funny. The summit is falling on the weekend of our Houston Marathon. So I'm so excited. I'm going to be so pumped up to talk to people that day.
Great. Well, we'll look
I'm
forward to
always on my high.
receiving that high vibrational energy after the marathon. So that's great.
Yes,
Yeah. All right.
yes.
Well, take care.